Monk is not good. Monk is OP. Poor bosses being annihilated. While you're flying through any area, just holding down your ice strike and bam, 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 exploding those shattered enemies with a Herald of Ice. In 6 hours and 50 minutes, I went from Act 1 to Act 3. This has been my fastest playthrough so far, and I think we could have gone even faster. This starter guide is going to be different from what you have seen so far. We will go in order through Act 1, 2, 3, which skill gems to pick first, supports, first 10 levels in the passive tree, 20, 30, when to do the Trouts of Sekimas, everything in proper order so you can nicely progress through the game with the timestamps in the description below. Now let's begin with Act 1. You land at the shores, get your Quarterstaff, and pick up Falling Thunder. Overhead hit, on the ground lightning, quite cool, can shock the enemies and kill multiple enemies at the same time. This together with your basic attack, basic Quarterstaff whack, is going to be a staple until level 14. As you then enter the encampment, the second skill you're picking up is going to be Killing Palm. If you now kill an enemy with Killing Palm, you get a power charge, and these power charges can be used with Falling Thunder to do a bigger boom. Keep in mind, Killing Palm can be used on normal monsters, elites, and even on bosses to just kill them earlier. At the beginning, you twack people with your Quarterstaff once, finish them off with a Killing Palm, and whenever there's a horde of enemies, bam, Falling Thunder them. Easy life. In order to make this even smoother and add some range to the build, you'll pick up Glacial Cascade that has you shoot forward waves of frost. Really funny to use against bosses that like to be ranged as well, ghost enemies, as you're approaching mobs to just in the beginning throw in damage, as Glacial Cascade does most damage at the end with the Ice Spike. So if you're sending max range to an opponent, boom Cascade, boom Cascade, boom Cascade, King of the Mist, Ascension, even Draven or Lachlan, all are going to be able to get Glacial Cascaded easy. Now let's get to our fourth skill before we talk about supports, because the supports are changing it all in the beginning. And the fourth skill is Frozen Locust. This drops a flower of ice in front of you that will hardcore freeze the opponent. Either you can attack it for an ice explosion or they'll attack it for an ice explosion. The good thing about the Locust is as soon as you're being pushed by enemies, you just drop it on the ground and they'll get frozen. And later, with a Herald of Ice, those frozen enemies, boom, will explode. It's just walking into enemies, have them frozen, hit him, he shatters, explosion, boom, mob clear, and you go on. Now to your support gems, because this is where it gets crazy. The first one you pick up is going to be Martial Tempo for 25% attack speed on your standard Quarterstaff attack. Yes, because that's your most deadly one. Especially as you pick up your fifth skill, and that is going to be Tempest Bell. The bell gets dropped on the ground versus elites and bosses, even big mob packs, and you're hitting the bell to resonate damage outwards. And the faster your attack attacks, the faster your Quarterstaff strike attacks, the more often you can ring the bell. That's going to be your main bossing bullying. Bell, hit it, bell, hit it, bell, hit it. At this point, I'm just standing AFK in front of bosses, dropping belts on them, hitting the bell. They can't damage me because of evasion, and we're just slashing them into pieces. And in order to build up crazy amounts of damage early, we're using Rage. Supported skills grant 3 Rage on melee hit, and Rage gives you 1% more attack damage per 1 Rage gain to a maximum of 30. Now watch my standard DPS without Rage. This is a wolf. That's already just with a little bit of Rage and a critical strike, upping my DPS. And against them here, just getting it all higher. This is just me using my basic attack, no other things. 2,700 DPS because of Rage. Yeah. I just went 1,000 DPS higher. Ta-da. Now you're pretty much running around, Quarterstaff striking your opponents, killing, palming them, Falling Thunder follow up, Glacial Cascade on the range, and you've Frozen Locust if you get pushed by many. You find an elite, magic mobs, or a boss, you drop your Tempest Bell on them and keep hitting the bell with the auto attacks and go for super rage, super damage. And as soon as you get to fight the King of the Mist, we're adding extra spunk to it, extra spice. That's where the Herald of Ice comes in. While active, shattering an enemy with an attack hit will cause an icy explosion that deals attack damage to surrounding enemies. This does fit perfectly in the gameplay loop. As I told you, you walk up to a pack of monsters, Frozen Locust, just hit that one frozen guy, boom, and he explodes outwards and kills everyone else. Rinse and repeat. At this point, you don't even need the Falling Thunder anymore. You're mostly just going for your normal Quarterstaff strike together with Frozen Locust. the Herald of Ice, and if there's anything sturdy, the Tempest Bell. Let's talk about more supports now. For the Frozen Locust to really freeze super fast, you can take Glaciation. Supported skills cost 50% more freeze buildup. As the freeze buildup is already 50% increased from the Frozen Locust, having more is just straight up better. And on top, you can take Ice Bite. Attacks gain 35% of damage as cold damage for 3 seconds on freezing an enemy with a supported skill. Drop Frozen Locust, Glaciation Super Freeze into Ice Bite, and then boom, Herald of Ice, big banger explosion with your standard Quarterstaff strikes. For our Tempest Bell to make it even more deadly, we're slapping on Overabundance, which reduces the skill effect duration, but we can drop one more, and then you can put Persistence on to increase the skill effect duration again. This allows partially to have 2 bells on your opponent. Just drop one, drop another one, just keep hitting them, drop one, drop the other one, pop, 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 and bosses are being twacked silly left, right, and center. We're still in Act 1 though, we're not level 14 yet. This is all on the way to level 14. At this point, Killing Palm and Falling Thunder are pretty much not being used anymore. And as soon as you hit level 14, you can truly just throw them out. Because on level 14, we're getting Ice Strike. Ice Strike is a triple combo hit forward, where the third strike is more powerful and does a big banger cold damage attack. Now the Ice Strike from this point on is your basic attack. You're not doing anything else. You're just ice striking around. And our passive tree supports this nicely. What you need to do now is you need to take the Rage and put it into your Ice Strike. And we also need to take the Martial Tempo and put it into your Ice Strike. Because that is, again, the ability we're using now. The good thing is it does cold damage as well as the Frozen Locust. You're going to dash forward with the Ice Strike into your opponent, Frozen Locust, boom, boom, freeze them. The Ice Strike freezes them as well. They explode as soon as they're frozen because of the Herald of Ice. So you're just aggressively rushing through your opponents. Oh, and if you're striking your Tempest Bell now with the Ice Strike, the Tempest Bell will deal 30% more damage per elemental ailment afflicting the bell. So it's going to be doing ice pulses pretty much outwards. Killing Palm is also leaving your board, as I said, which means from level 14 on, it's Ice Strike, Cascade, Locust, Bell, and Herald of Ice. We're gonna say that you're not really using the Cascade at this point anymore, only in between every now and then for some ranged hits, but it's really mostly Ice Strike, Locust, Bell, Herald. Ice Strike, Locust, Bell, Herald. And I gotta tell you, this has been the easiest Count Geonor it has ever been in the history of Count Geonors. He's just being manhandled, beaten, absolutely twacked silly. No way of fighting back. Like supreme bullying. It wasn't even funny anymore. The poor guy didn't have a single chance. And this is with a solo self-found character, not with something juiced by the money of my other characters, exalted equipment bought or anything like this. And it continues straight away in Act 2, Wrathbreaker just being twacked silly, with a simple combo of Ice Strike and the Bell. Now our passive tree though is supporting this nicely, because we're focusing on defense first. And as always, I'm not going to talk you through this, I'm going to click you through this. Our goal from the beginning on was be able to stay AFK and just twack bosses. And for this, instead of going for some more skill speed and some more critical strike damage bonus or attack damage, we're just gonna go for evasion energy shield, maximum evasion energy shield, maximum evasion energy shield. This will just allow you to stay alive easily while you're already doing incredible damage. The Monk skill set just does insane damage, and you can just simply juice your defenses. I've been from very early on pretty much running around with 60-70% evasion. Now we're getting bonus mana regeneration because it's super mana hungry and movement speed, and we move into more evasion, more evasion, more evasion. It seems crazy to do this, but it is so good and working. Now we finally get some dex intelligence and increased casting speed, and then we move into the crit hit chance and the crashing waves. With the crashing wave together, you're truly juicing up your damage because you will critical hit with all the auto attacks you're doing inevitably. That one then brings you to the side into increased attack damage and chance to blind enemies with attacks. Boom. Now you get another big damage stacker. For the attributes, take what you need. Intelligence or dexterity. Gotta be having enough to equip everything dex intelligence wise as you're looking for this evasion plus energy shield gear. On your chest, probably maximum evasion though. To the most important one next up. We're going for more attributes and then reduce skill cost. Your skills are going to be expensive, especially as you're then using Ice Strike, so conservative casting will keep you more topped up. Then we're moving into the side for bonus attack speed and more attack speed if you have been hit recently, with more attack damage on full life and more attack damage on low life. You're mostly full life as you have enemies frozen and you have some energy shield going on. In order to really live the freeze buildup thingy, we're also going to put 2 points down for more freeze buildup and more damage as extra cold damage plus more freeze buildup. This is so free, you can simply not ignore it. Then we'll move to the side, and here comes the most important notes. We're going to get ourselves all the way bonus attack speed, and very important, the resonance keystone. Gain power charges instead of frenzy charges instead of endurance charges, and endurance charges instead of power charges. Now this might not make any sense to you yet, and you only have to take this note as you get into Act 3 and get your plus 30 spirit there. Don't worry, we're still in Act 2. We've just taken more points already than you get in Act 2. Now let's move back to the skills and supports so I can explain resonance to you and why you need it. In Act 2, you'll finally get a tier 7 gem as well. And there, we're not taking Freezing Mark, we're taking Wave of Frost. And Wave of Frost is pretty much overtaking your Frozen Locust. You're dashing backwards, unless you Wave of Frost forward, that more or less instantly freeze your opponents. Especially potent for the Dreadnought later on. It's a get out of jail card. You can zoom through areas and then just literally freeze everyone in front of you. And for this one, I like to take Frost Nexus. When you freeze, you create Chilled Ground, which has everyone that is not frozen just get bonus chill and get frozen as well. And on top, Inspiration to reduce the skill cost, since the skill is relatively expensive with 67 mana, and the Frost Nexus would be another 120% bonus. So you want to lower this. And the Wave of Frost kind of overtakes the Frozen Locust here. And as we later add a third gem slot to it, I would probably take the Ice Bind, increasing my attack damage if I then froze something on the Wave of Frost to just have it juice up furthermore. I would still keep the Frozen Locust in my skill set, as it can be useful to drop the Wave of Frost and the Locust in front of you, then the bell, and keep ice striking into it to destroy everything. That's pretty much it though. Apart from doing your Ascension already with level 21 and having a goddamn easy time, especially since we're doing freezing damage, and there's a fire boss to Twack Silly and is weak to frost. Now you might be worried that you're a melee character, how are you going to handle the Trials of Sekimas? But it really wasn't a problem. The Frozen Locust, the Ice Strike, Tempest Bell, Herald of Ice, Glacial Cascade, I had no issues staying alive and not taking honor damage while you just get everything clippity-clappitied. And the Ascension you're looking for is the Invoker, with the first 2 points for me going into increased magnitude of chill you inflict, and also gain 10% damage as extra cold damage on freezing enemies create chilled ground. So that's pretty good. As soon as you get this with a chilled ground, you also don't rely on the Frost Nexus anymore that you have on the Wave of Frost, because now we're creating that chilled ground. And you can play Glaciation instead for even more freeze buildup that used to be on the Frozen Locust. Now in the long run, we're looking at Lead Me Through Grace to gain even more spirit, as we're planning to play 3-4 different spirit abilities. But right now we get our second point into Unbound Avatar, which is going to juice our elemental damage like crazy. We'll talk about Unbound Avatar in a bit. Now, nothing more is changing about this in Act 2. You get the Wave of Frost, the Frozen Locust occasionally, Glacial Cascade, and mostly just ice striking your opponent like mad with the Tempest Bell. And again, the Act 2 end boss was the easiest he has ever been. I didn't even have to avoid much because, again, we've been mainly juicing up our evasion rating, and we have been getting some energy shield on top, making us so sturdy. With the Rage together and the damage scaling of the Frost plus the belts, you're just twacking your opponent silly. Try to get a Quarterstaff that does a lot of physical damage, potentially with cold imbuement. Otherwise, fire doesn't hurt, since you can ignite the bell and have it get more damage because of all the elemental ailments on it. That would be then frost and ignite. Physical damage though is your friend, because physical damage is being turned into cold, and the more cold you do, the more freeze buildup, the easier you have it versus bosses to just beat him silly. And in Act 3 comes the most important change. You're getting your LightSaber and finally that passive node will make sense. The lightsaber is called Charge Staff. Consume all power charges to infuse your Quarterstaff with electricity. You're adding 1 to 8 electric damage to your Quarterstaff, and the buff duration is 6 seconds per power charge consumed, up to a maximum of 18 seconds. Your staff from this point will also send forward a shockwave that converts 80% of physical damage to lightning damage. You're not only getting a lightsaber with bonus lightning damage, you're also shooting lightning forward that will hit your bell. Your bell will get shocked, and then you have shock damage going out, frost damage going out, and maybe even fire damage going out if you then have a staff with a bit of fire on it. But how do we get power charges now? And as soon in Act 3 as you kill the witch in the bog, you get the next plus 30 spirit, sitting at a grand total of 60 spirit. Then you'll have to make sure to get 83 dexterity, either with a ring giving you more dex, or just simply taking enough dex nodes in the passive tree. I had to personally have a ring with plus 10 dex, or something that gave me plus 10 int, that I could then go for more dex nodes in the board. In this combat frenzy, when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy, will give you a frenzy charge. Now, frenzy charges are useless, but if you remember, the Keystone Resonance says power charges instead of frenzy charges, which means whenever I freeze someone right now, and I consistently freeze bosses, normal enemies, whoever, I get a power charge. And with a perfusion support, you have a 50% chance to get an additional charge that will quickly lead into 2-3 charges, and then you have 18 seconds long the charge staff buff. If I'm pushing through an area, I always have that buff up, versus bosses as well. If you want to make sure to truly have it always going on, I move the persistence buff from my bell over to the staff to have it go crazy. And then on the bell with the tier 2 support gem, you can put heavy swing. Supported skills deal 35% more melee physical damage, and supported skill have 10% less attack speed. That less attack speed doesn't matter because the damage that's going out is bound to the swings I'm putting in, and it just nicely uses 100 damage more right now. That one gets multiplied upward further as well with the rage that we're building up from the ice strikes anyways. So it's really nice to have that heavy swings on the bell. If you're lucky, you might pick up a Jewellers Orb for the ice strike to have a third slot. And in my case, I used that Primal Armament with a tier 2 support to juice the ice strike even further. That's almost 400 damage more. And if we're raging to get that 30% more attack damage, well, we're ending up ice strike with 3,000 damage and beyond. I think it's 3,500 at this point. The DPS goes up so crazy. And that's you tearing through Act 3, absolutely obliterating everything. Like, nothing can stop you. The Chimera, dude coming out of the wall, Doriani, even the Viper, we almost one-faced her. I don't even know how that is possible. We almost prevented her poison spear stabbing phase by just doing overwhelming damage. And with level 41, we did our second ascendancy. And as our boss, we get that poisonous bird boss, and I was concerned for a second that it could be a harsh fight. Since I've only fought him with ranged characters at this point and avoided most of his poison damage, forget about it. It's not going to be a hard fight. You're gonna laugh your ass off while you just humiliate that poor bird. And this will lead to 2 more points and the Unbound Avatar we talked about. You'll get 12% more elemental damage and the skill called Unbound Avatar. And this one is interesting. You gain Unbound Fury when you inflict an elemental ailment. We always freeze and we shock. This goes up to a maximum of 100 Unbound Fury. And then you can activate the Unbound Avatar, which gives you 40% more elemental damage, 40% more elemental ailment buildup, and 80% more chance to inflict elemental ailment while unbound. And the unbound duration is 9 seconds long. Probably gonna move that persistence buff at some point over. This is your super avatar mode, your silly twacking, your absolute bongoose damage booster that I'm flipping on against bosses to just slash and dash out harder than ever before. And it has worked out pretty damn well so far, I would reckon. We're not done though with all the skills, because there's one more I'm planning to add to this. You do mostly see me using tier 1, tier 2 gems, no tier 3 gems, and that's because we're level 42 right now. No worries, there will be an updated video coming with the endgame-ish version of this build that's also going to be containing all the tier 3 gems and beyond. But the next step is going to pick up another plus 30 spirit as you're then in Act 3 Cruel, kill the witch in the bog again. And with that more spirit, we're adding lightning with the Herald of Thunder. And the Herald of Thunder says, if you kill a shocked enemy with an attack, there will be lightning bolts coming from the sky, striking surrounding enemies. And lightning bolts strike the target of your next 3 attack hits after killing a shocked enemy with attack damage. That Herald of Thunder is possible because you have your charged staff adding lightning damage to your staff. You're gonna lightning infuse the Tempest spell to lightning resonate out. And the charged staff itself has that shockwave lightning damage forward, which might make you think about adding conduction to your charged staff. So we have a higher chance to shock and always have something shocked, where shock anyways means our opponents take 20% more damage. And now you're the official Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, Lightning Madness. And the Herald of Thunder you can boost with things like Lightning Infusion, even though that would lead to less damage right now because we quite do some cold and fire damage with our Quarterstaff. And it would reduce it, but these values will shift with future Quarterstaffs coming. Now for our passive trait to juice the character up even more, we're looking to pick ourselves maximum energy shield per evasion rating on body armor. If you have an evasion rating of 1000 to 2000 later on the body armor, that will come in very handy. You can also take at the bottom next to the blinding strike, get evasion rating per energy shield on your equipped helmet. You take a helmet with a maximum juice 150 energy shield to get another 300 evasion rating. Why not, as it gets multiplied upwards? And since the crit damage from crashing wave is working so damn well, I feel like taking the bonus critical strike damage bonus, hit chance, and critical hit chance, together with damage bonus and even more critical damage bonus, into increased damage if you dealt a critical hit recently, critical hit chance, and then even more crit chance and damage bonus if you crit hit recently. Might even think about just genuinely juicing out the rest of the board, as these are all crit hit, crit damage bonuses. And that will just really well work together with the crashing wave in the beginning to completely crit overload you. And if you go to the top, past the jewel socket, you can get more damage with hits against frozen enemies and freeze buildup. Plus, hits ignore non-negative elemental resistance of frozen enemies and increased freeze buildup. As a later stage goal, we kind of want to aim our way towards this node, the Falcon technique, for increased attack speed per 15 dex. And then you do have a lot of decks up here, and most important, increased evasion rating and increased evasion rating of equipped body armor. And now keep in mind, we said here that we're going to turn we're getting maximum energy shield per evasion rating on equipped body armor. So if I have 1000 evasion rating body armor, or even 1500 evasion rating body armor, we can put that up to 3000, and 3000 divided by 12 will give us an easy 250 energy shield bonus without having to do anything. It's just more defense for free. In the long run, we probably aim for can evade all hits, 70% less evasion rating, as we're quite working on more evasion rating with the energy shield juicing, with all the stuff we have here with the bonus evasion rating, here all the evasion ratings. It should lead to very good values that, and with the acrobatics, we can even avoid area attacks. Let's not forget about gear. First, the most important piece, the Quarterstaff. I have one with fire damage, cold damage, and then melee skills. And the ones I used before were something with just straight up physical damage, then physical, cold, lightning, or even more physical damage. These are things we're looking for pretty much to get as much physical damage as possible. For rings, you're really looking for physical attack damage as life and mana to really stay topped up at any given point. Chest is evasion, helmet should be energy shield, boots can be both, gloves can be both. On gloves, you're obviously looking for damage gloves again with more physical damage and more cold damage. And if you want to, you can get a spirit amulet to get yourself clarity on one of your spirit skills for more mana regeneration. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I could convince you on the Monk starter. It is an absolute incredible beast, and it's one of the most fun gameplays I've had next to the Mercenary. I still like the Mercenary a little bit more with the grenades, but the Monk is really growing on me. Again, there'll be a follow-up guide with a further levels from this point on. We gotta play that live on stream though first. And if you're now in need for more endgame tips or tips in general, both videos are amazing and gonna speed up your progress further, help you with crafting, with the mapping stage, or simply with things you did not know. Enjoy and have a good day.